Okay, we need to talk about Liars Handshake. With the update to Arc 3.0 and adding jolting and all this crazy chain lightning crap, Liars Handshake is now the best state that it's ever been in the entirety of Destiny. As you can see from the background gameplay, I'm just meleeing the crap out of everything, and I'm continuously getting my health back from cross counter, and it's just a perfect synergy. Now on top of this is a master dungeon, which is Grasp of Avarice, and I'm 15 light underneath the recommended power, which is 1600. As you can see from this, I'm chaining lightning, I'm causing explosions, I'm blinding things, and I'm just not dying because of this insane exotic and Arc 3.0 synergy. First of all, let's jump into the exotic and explain why this works so well. Liar's Handshake has the ability called Cross Counter, which is using an arc melee ability or being hit by a melee attack will allow you to follow up with an extremely powerful melee counterpunch that will heal you. So the initial melee hit is just going to do what a normal melee would do, but that second melee hit is going to do a lot more damage and it's going to heal you. And if you're focusing on low level adds, you're going to chain it through every single one of them and you're probably going to wipe out a huge group just like this gameplay here. Alright, now that we know what the exotic ability does, we're going to jump over to the subclass and explain why all this just synergizes so well. First up, we have Flow State, which is defeating a jolted target makes you amplified. So while you're amplified, your dodge recharges more quickly, you're more resilient while dodging, and your reload speed is greatly increased. All three of these things are super important for this build, but we're mainly focusing on those jolted targets. Let's move on to the next aspect, which is Lethal Current. After dodging, your next melee attack has increased lunge range, jolts the target, and creates a damaging aftershock. Damaging any jolted target with melee attacks also blinds them. So we've got this sweet synergy between these two aspects where after a dodge and you melee someone, you end up jolting that target. And then if you continuously melee them, after you kill that jolted target, you become amplified. So everything's going to start recharging a lot more quickly and you can move around a lot faster so you can get to your next target to melee them. Now let's add another piece of synergy to the puzzle. And let's jump over here to the melee. So we want to do Combination Blow. Defeating targets with this ability also refills your class ability energy and restores a small amount of health. With this Combination Blow, every single time you defeat a target, you're gaining health back and you're instantaneously getting your dodge back. So let's add some more synergy on top of that with Gambler's Dodge. Every single time you dodge near an enemy, you recharge your melee ability. So in theory, if you were to run just these two pieces right here, your class ability and your melee, you could have an infinite melee dodge chain going on. Every single time you get a kill, you get your dodge back. Every time you dodge, you get your melee back. It just works super, super nicely. And on top of this, I like to add the flashbang grenade because it allows me to blind targets nearby. So if I've got a particularly beefy ad and I throw this out, he becomes blind, he's not going to damage me, and I can just wail away at him with my melees, continuously dodging and then meleeing, dodging, meleeing, and I'm just going to do a lot of damage over time because I'm going to be triggering my exotic's secondary melee hit. Now let's move on to our fragments. First up, we have Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage, and you gain plus 10 strength. This is super, super good because you're going to be up close and personal with this build 99% of the time. So to get that increased damage resistance is super helpful. The next one is Spark of Feedback. Taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing melee damage. Being so up close and personal with all these targets, they're going to melee you if they're not blinded. The majority of the time they are going to be blinded, but with beefier targets, they'll get out of that blind state before you can kill them and they will melee you. So this increased outgoing melee damage on top of your cross counter melee damage is going to do so much, and your damage output is going to be quadruple what it would be from a normal melee hit. The next arc fragment I like to use is Spark of Shock. Your arc grenade jolts targets. Now what I do with this is I throw my arc grenade into a group of enemies before I'm within melee range, and I jolt every single one of them. So that comes over and that pairs with my initial aspect where when I get that first kill off of one of those targets that I just jolted, I'm going to become amplified and I'm going to move more quickly, my dodge is going to recharge more quickly, and it's all just going to kind of mesh together. Then finally for my arc fragments, I do Spark of Ions. Defeating jolted targets creates an ionic trace. And I use this fragment because when you get an ionic trace, it gives you ability energy. So basically what's going to happen with this is every single time you defeat a jolted target, and everything's going to be jolted because of either your grenade or your melee, you're going to get an ionic trace, and that trace is going to give you ability energy back. So if for some reason you're caught in a position where you don't have enough grenade energy and you need one, this is going to give it to you almost instantaneously. So it's just this infinite loop of always having abilities, always putting out tons and tons of damage, and always healing. So you're basically this invincible lightning striking machine. Now finally for ultimate, it really doesn't matter what you use, but personally I like Gathering Storm because you can run this in a raid encounter and you can give your teammates that extra damage bonus, and it just kind of works out nicely. or you can throw it into a big group of ads and wipe them out instantaneously without even having to go in with your melee. As far as weapons go, it really doesn't matter what you use because you're going to be mainly focused on your melee ability, but the Brigadier's Law does really, really well because it has Volt Shot, because after you get a kill and reload, your next shot is going to jolt targets. So if you're at a range, if you don't have grenade energy or whatever, you can jolt them from a distance and then get in there up and close in their face. Another perk that works insanely well and might honestly be the best combo for this class is Swashbuckler. Whenever you get a kill with the weapon or a melee kill, you're going to be increasing the damage of that weapon. And the great part about this is you're going to be doing so much melee damage that Swashbuckler is like always going to be procced. So if you get to a target that's particularly beefy, you can just switch to a gun that has Swashbuckler and wipe them out. Specifically with shotguns, you're going to do so much damage. Like the new Inquisitor shotgun from Trials is a great fit for this. All that being said, if I was going to suggest some stats for you to go for, I would suggest Resilience over anything else. You're always going to have your dodge from those melee kills. You're always going to have your melee from those dodges. So there's no real need to invest in mobility or strength. So just going for resilience to keep yourself alive in those few seconds where you don't have health is key. Now moving on from stats, let's talk about our mods. You have Melee Wellmaker, Bountiful Wells, Seeking Wells, and the key to this build, the thing that's going to make you really crazy strong and high-end content, is Well of Ions. The reason why Well of Ions is so good is because when you pair this with Melee Wellmaker, it's insane. So when you get a melee kill, you're going to get a Arc Elemental Well. When you pick up that Arc Elemental Well, your next melee damage is going to be increased. So on top of your cross counter perk for your exotic, on top of your aspect that's giving you more melee damage, now you have Well of Ions on top of this. So you're putting out crazy damage to these super beefy targets. So you can run this build in master content. If you don't have this specific mod, it's okay, you don't necessarily need it, but if you do, it can make master content so much easier. Now, what if you don't have the weapons? What if you don't have these mods? That's okay. Honestly, all you really need for lower end content is Liars Handshake and the Arc class. If you run those two things, you're going to be tearing through everything. Like, this is the class that I run whenever I run any raid right now. As long as it's not master content, if I just have those two things equipped, I can shred through everything. I'm always healing. I'm always doing this, and it just works out so nicely. If you want the full build overview, it's up here on screen, so feel free to check that out, screenshot it, whatever you want to do. If you found this video entertaining or useful in any way, please hit that like and subscribe button. It would mean so much to me. Thank you so much for watching, Guardians, and I hope you have a wonderful day.